This audio podcast is brought to you from cannymarketing.co.uk. Canny Marketing. Smart thinking, clever marketing. Welcome to the Canny Marketing audio podcast, bringing you strategies, tips and advice to develop and succeed in your internet marketing business. Training you today, your internet marketing coach that never uses shampoo, it's John McLauchlan.
Thank you, hello, welcome to the podcast. I'm John McLauchlan, bringing another information-packed, no-nonsense canny marketing podcast. And today's podcast is called Developing the Mind of a Champion. Have you ever set out to do something with the fullest and best intentions, and then a few days later, no matter how hard you try, you find yourself not doing it? Why is that? Well, in today's podcast, I'll be covering the subject of basic psychology on why we do the things that we do, and why we get the same results over and over again. So if you're interested in the psychology of business and you're passionate about changing your results, then get a pen and paper ready now. Turn off all distractions and listen to this recording over and over again, because this is powerful information. All that when we return on the Canny Marketing Podcast. Think back to the beginning of January, the first day of the new year. How many of you made a New Year's resolution? We start off with good intentions, but the reality is that most New Year's resolutions last about 2 weeks. You see, we human beings have a habit of repeating the past. Humans do the same things over and over and over again until we die. Now, regardless of whether, what you do is good or bad, and perhaps you know someone like this, maybe it's you. See, unfortunately for the majority of us, we were never taught at school how to break habits and patterns that have no useful purpose for us. So we throw good money at the latest fad diet or the get-rich-quick scheme, only to find ourselves right back where we started 6 months earlier. Have you been on a diet, struggling to resist temptation? You lose some weight and then slowly you put it back on again, and a bit more for good measure. Or you decide to save more money, and then you splash out on an extravagant holiday. You all know the situations because we're all human. And we've all done them at some point. But, whenever we do these sort of things, we always try to justify ourselves to the contrary. Things like justifying not making that new video course because you need a better camera. Or, I know I should really invest the profits back into my business, but I really want that holiday in the Maldives. So why do we do this? Well, in this podcast, I'll be explaining why. And in simple terms, how your mind works and how your mind works in getting the results that you want. In your business and in your life in general. By breaking the cycles of repeating the past, I'll be explaining why not being completely committed in your business is why lottery winners go broke after 2 years. And why for most people, their mind is running them. When we reverse the process, you're controlling your mind. So you can have whatever you put your mind to. I remember when I first joined the police, and I was pretty young and naive, and I attended an inquiry at a house with a colleague who was showing me the ropes. I went to one of the local housing estates. And I remember we knocked on the door, and this door was opened by an obnoxious female, awful woman, who was holding a baby. And this baby was covered head to toe in filth. I mean, you'd never seen anything like it. And whilst we were both speaking to this woman on the doorstep, I started looking in the house, and just looking through from where we were stood, through the hall, into the kitchen. I noticed there were dogs everywhere. There were dogs running around, and these dogs obviously weren't house-trained. Then I saw another baby. So she had another baby. And this baby was crawling in a nappy. And it was crawling towards the kitchen. And in the kitchen, there was a big puddle of urine in the kitchen. And now, if you're wondering how do you know it was urine, believe me, it was. Before I could say anything, this baby crawled through the puddle, leaving a long trail behind it while these dogs sniffed at whatever the contents of the bulging nappy were. Anyway, so we completed the inquiry, and I recall, in disbelief, in shock and horror, saying to my colleague, why does she live like that? Why do these people live like that? And he just said to me, well, it's their norm. It's their values and it's their beliefs. Over the years, I met many different people from good backgrounds and bad ones alike, just like the woman I explained to you about. But what I found was similar patterns emerging, similar attitudes, similar relationships, resulting from people's limiting beliefs. In the example of the woman, she had an unconscious belief about a desire to have a good life, which conflicted with her desire to have a good life. If you have an unconscious belief that the products you create or the value you're giving to your business is worthless, then this in turn will conflict with your desire to strive to achieve any levels of success. So here's the point. All things and ideas start in the mind first, but if you cannot access your mind at an unconscious level, you won't have much power to change your results. So it doesn't matter how well educated you are, how many courses you attend, if you have the same limiting beliefs, you'll always get the same results. And until you learn how to access your unconscious mind, you're not in control of your mind. Your mind is in control of you. Roger Bannister was the first man ever to run a 4-minute mile. And within a year of doing this, 37 other athletes have achieved this. And the following year, 300 athletes had achieved the 4-minute mile. So how is it possible? Well, you see, from the moment that the world believed it was possible to run a 4-minute mile, the collective consciousness, if you like, therefore shifted from the 4-minute mile being impossible to being possible. And with that belief held in their minds made it possible to achieve the 4-minute mile. You see, before Roger Bannister's achievement, people thought that stress on the body would cause a heart attack, and nobody thought it was possible to run that fast, so no one did. So you see how it works. The same limiting beliefs thought that sailors would fall off the earth if they went too far. Results originate in your mind, and it won't allow us to accomplish what it doesn't believe is possible to accomplish. If we look at what we want to achieve in our business and our family life, then they're all results. You see, starting your business from zero to $120,000 a year is a series of results. And to get results, we need to take action. We take the action that we take because of a desire or your why, your reason. And desire is an emotional motivation. So it's our emotions that give us the motivation that in turn gives us our results. So let's say you're a beginner to the internet and the network marketing business, and you see the charisma and the credibility of a leader in your business or your company. Now that reaction will evoke an emotional response, which may make everything a bit overwhelming, or perhaps it motivates you to aspire to be like them. You know what you felt at the time. So humans have one thing in common. They move towards things that makes them feel good, and they move away from things that makes them feel bad. And the greater motivation between the two is humans move away from things that makes us feel bad or uncomfortable. How do we feel, say, a week before we submit a tax return? The pain gets so bad that we have to act. We're ringing up our accountants, making sure things are done. So moving away from pain is a much more powerful motivation. But ultimately, it's more negative reaction. So if you go through life this way, being kicked along and forced to react, then moving towards something that feels good is certainly a lot better. So where do our emotions come from? Some days we feel great, and other days we feel not so great. It's not so much to do with our circumstances, but it's to do with our thoughts. The quickest way to change your thoughts is turn on the domestic brain control device. Oh, sorry, I mean the TV. Put on a Rocky film. As soon as I watch a Rocky film, I want to go out training. How you feel depends on your thoughts. So if you want to get some new results, change your thoughts. There you go, a revelation. Until next time. Okay, it's not quite that easy. Have you ever tried changing your thoughts? Yeah, think more positively, and of course there are books on positive thinking. That's great. Listen, until you get behind the pensioner, who's driving at 20 miles an hour in a 30. Why are you driving so slow? We could change our actions a bit more by putting more time into our business, or maybe outsourcing more tasks. But after a while, it goes back to that default mechanism. It goes back to normal. So we want to change our results, and we know that changing our thoughts is difficult. So we need to know where our thoughts come from, because most of us have no idea where our thoughts come from. You see, the other day, I was in town, and as most of you know, I'm still on my training diet, but I got a sudden thought that just entered my head. Don't know where it came from. This thought said, go to Subway straight away, buy a big, large sandwich, and shove it in your mouth. All right? And before I knew what was happening, I was there munching on this Subway sandwich, and I thought, I'm supposed to be on a diet. and obviously the results there were no fat was lost that day. But where did the thought come from? Where do our thoughts come from? Because they come to us all the time. I didn't make the conscious decision to go and fill my face, nor did I think anything positive. It just happened. So why? Well, our thoughts are the results of our conditioning. Going back to our beliefs and values, like I said before, remember the example of the lady who had the babies. Those beliefs and values were given to us from our parents and our peers whilst we were growing up. In turn, these beliefs and values were given to them through their parents and their peers. I was at a martial arts seminar recently, and one of the speakers described the value and belief system as the script, and his name was Richard Wilkins. Now, what you do in your training or in your life, you do because you hold it in your belief system, or it's written in your script. Another way of understanding this concept is to refer to your thoughts as programs, much like computer programs. If you're familiar with NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, they understand that the brain is like a giant computer and can run on programs. The first of which is a set of programs called nervous system programs. These programs are things like heartbeat, blink, breathe, the sort of programs that we're pretty happy that we've got. The second set of programs are thought process programs. These control your thoughts and beliefs. One of the programs I've noticed within the UK is the let's work as many hours as we can because we should program. As a matter of interest, how's that one going? When we went through school, how many of you heard the get a good paying job and security program? Or what about the no pain, no gain attitude to work? Yeah, good advice for martial artists, but if you apply this program to work, then you'll go through your working life suffering, thinking that the more that you suffer, the more likely you are to succeed. Tell that one to the miners. Or what about the do you think I'm made of money? Or do you think I'm Rockefeller? Okay, these programs give you the idea that money is hard to come by, and we end up struggling for it. So right now, stop this podcast and write down or think about what programs you think you may be running. Maybe it's the I'm only 19 years old and can't influence anyone to join my business type program. So just look at your results. Look at your results right now and come back in a few minutes. You still listen to this, aren't you? You haven't turned it off at all. Go on, turn it off. Turn it off and do what I said. Okay, bye. In describing the mind, most people are familiar with the conscious, subconscious, and the survival sides of the brain. The conscious mind we use for day-to-day decisions, which we use less than 5% of the time. The conscious mind is that little voice in your head that talks to you. And if you're wondering, what little voice is he talking about? Then it's a little voice that just said, what little voice is he talking about? Our subconscious mind runs our programs and belief systems, and anything that we do on autopilot, and used around 95% of the time. It's like a huge library of stored information, like a giant computer hard drive. Our survival brain has the power to control all of these if we're put in danger, either mentally or physically, which is the basis behind the thought processes of stress and personal protection. If you feel overwhelmed by having to step up by going outside your comfort zone, then that feeling comes from an emotional response from your belief system. However, your survival brain can react in the same way as if you were actually being attacked yourself, sending the body into a fear, fight or flight mode, and storing that feeling as a false memory. So each time you have to step up and perform outside your comfort zone, you have the same feelings of fear, whether they're justified or not. This survival mechanism, based on things that you experienced in the past, is why humans tend to repeat things over and over again, and as a result, our past repeats itself to our future. A simpler example is when you go to a restaurant, do you order the same thing? I know when I reviewed my own programming, I found out this is what I do. Everywhere I go, blue fillet steak. Then if I have something else, I think I might ruin the night by having a bad meal. But the reality is, until you access your programming, you don't have choice. And owing to the ignorance of our own programming, we choose not to choose. You see, the fundamental approach to your program is firstly, knowing that it exists. And now that you do, secondly, it's awareness of our programs. Look at your results. Look at your actions, your feelings, your thoughts when you make a decision. Uncovering programs is a constant thing. So ask your family, ask your friends, and ask for an honest reply. If you look at certain aspects of your business,
Are you programmed to believe that the ceiling of your earnings is $10,000 a month? Or the program that tells you that everything is hard to do and requires tons of effort?
Okay, you see, once you become aware of your programming, you can do something about it. Now, you may or may not be aware of the law of attraction, the principle of which is that like energy attracts like. And given that science has proved that all things in the universe is vibrating energy, you attract what you think about the most. Now, the subject on the law of attraction is a subject in itself, which may be a topic of a future podcast, but for the time being, just know that it's there. Now, including this podcast, we'll be looking at reprogramming the mind. Going back to the field of science, the mind cannot tell the difference between a real experience and a false one, which is why films have an emotional response. Kansho Hirokazu Kanazawa is a Shotokan Karate Tenth Dan, and the advice he gives to students early on is always to think in terms of victory and never in defeat, until you cannot imagine losing. Again, these are your own thoughts which create an emotional response and lead to a set of results. Now, an experiment was conducted by people who were not very good at playing cricket. These people were divided into 3 teams. One team was told to practice hitting the ball with a cricket bat from a bowler for 20 minutes a day for 1 month. The second team were told to do nothing at all. And the third team were told to imagine hitting the cricket ball successfully without actually touching a bat or a ball. Now, the results of that experiment were that the team that did nothing didn't improve at all. No surprise there. The team that practiced hitting the ball improved by 25%, but the team that thought about or imagined hitting the ball successfully improved by 24%. So almost the same as the ones that actually practiced with a physical bat and ball. Concluding that your subconscious mind cannot tell the difference between physical reality and an imagined experience.
So neither should it tell the difference between being the top earner in your company and thinking about being the top earner in your company. I hope you're starting to get the picture here.
So if you can correctly imagine what you want your life to be like, your subconscious mind will begin to store this information in the same way as it stores a memory, and believe it to be true. This, after all, is how basic phobias are developed. Fear of spiders, flying and heights. All developed and placed in the subconscious mind and activated by the survival brain, because it thinks whatever your program is programmed to do will happen. So the reverse process, imagine your ideal life and your programs begin to allow you to attract people, circumstances and opportunities that lead to what you want out of life. And this is the beginning of being able to consciously create your life. Once you begin to reprogram your life, you'll notice circumstances and opportunities present themselves that you wouldn't have seen before. This is where visualization is important. Begin to visualize what you want, but do it with a high emotional intensity. You see, the high emotional intensity is vital as the mind has more cognitive recall. So what do I mean by that? Well, where were you when you heard the news that Princess Diana had died? Okay, the news was so shocking and emotional that we remember not only where we were, but who we were with, because of the high emotional intensity. Now think about this. What did you have for your tea last Monday? You see? So its high emotional intensity is vital. One process used in the police in taking detailed witness statements is called cognitive regression, and by invoking the emotional state at the time in question, it increases the ability to recall more details such as descriptions of offenders, because the technique prompts the subconscious mind. Visualization is the same technique in reverse, altering your programming to create a different future outcome. Give yourself 10 to 15 minutes a day to visualize what you want.
So visualize winning and being the number one earner in your company. Get into the feeling of it. How does it feel to go on stage? How does it feel to be applauded and receive the recognition? How does it feel to be able to help so many people?
Use all the 5 senses. Eventually, that feeling and those results will manifest themselves into reality. One of the challenges we face is distraction. The average human being has the ability to concentrate for around 6 seconds before we think about something else that we have to do. So if we can practice concentration, then would you agree that we would have an advantage? I think so.
Well, if you're a student of personal development training, then you've already been doing it. Taking time out to meditate and practice deep breathing exercises.
You see, everything in this podcast is hundreds of years old, understood by our ancients. But the sceptical modern world only accepts science and fact, and now visualization, the law of attraction and the like, has been scientifically proven. We regard it as a new phenomenon. So you may well be sceptical. You may not understand it, but that doesn't mean that you should reject it. After all, you now know that that thought process is just a program. The fact is that what is, and whether you think it is or you think it isn't, it still is. And we constantly confuse the limits of our own perception of what is possible with what is actually possible. And because we do that, we reject things by a reflex action. Things that are put forward not because they can't be scientifically or evidentially supported, but because it's outside the limit of our own sense of possibility.
One thing is, however, guaranteed. Take no action and nothing will happen. Learn how to understand yourself by using the techniques I've taught you in this recording. Think like a champion. Take daily actions to be a champion, and you'd be well on your way to being one in all areas of your life. As Henry Ford said, if you think you can or if you think you can't, either way, you're probably right. The subject of psychology is both a huge and a diverse one, and this recording just gives you an insight into the proven techniques of how to get more of what you want. But with all diverse subjects, they raise additional questions, so please feel free to contact me through my website. So put things into practice, take action, and the very best of luck to you in your business. I'm John McLauchlan. See you next time.
To hear all the Canny Marketing podcasts, please visit cannymarketing.co.uk. CANNY marketing.co.uk. Canny Marketing. Smart thinking, clever marketing.